Welcome to The Yarn That Binds Us, the podcast where creativity meets connection. I'm your host, Jay Risa, and together we'll explore the stories, struggles, and successes of crochet artists from around the world. This is the space where yarn isn't just yarn, it's a lifeline, a business, and a form of self-expression that heals, inspires, and empowers. Whether you're here for the stitches, the stories, or strategies, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Today's guest is someone who truly moves the crochet community forward. Naomi is a Canadian crocheter and the creative mind behind Crouton's Crochet. And if you spent any time in a crochet space online, you've definitely felt her impact. She's not just known for turning food into the cutest crochet animals you've ever seen, but for building a genuinely supportive, inclusive community where crochet artists are celebrated, seen, and encouraged to grow. Naomi is also the force behind the end of the year Crochet Community Awards that spotlights creators doing meaningful work, and she openly teaches crocheters how to grow their social media presence without losing their joy. She's a creator, an educator, a community builder, and honestly, a pillar in the crochet world. I'm so excited to welcome Naomi of Crouton's Crochet to the show. Thank you, Naomi, for joining us today. We are super excited to have this conversation with you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, so let's dive right into this amazing conversation today. So, Naomi, your work is so unique, and I would like to know what inspired you to start turning food into crochet stuffed animals, and how did it become a signature part of your brand?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so it kind of started, I was still pretty new in my crochet journey, and I had the idea to make a meatball jellyfish. It just sort of like came in my head, and it made sense of like, the meatball and then the tentacles. And then I was like, oh, crocheting and meatballs. And I just thought that sounded really cute. So I made it. That was the first time I ever made something where I wasn't following someone else's pattern. So it was kind of a cool experience for me because it was the first time I really just made something completely my own without any pattern or anything. And then I posted it. It didn't do great on Instagram. My accounts were really small on both accounts. But on TikTok, it definitely got, excuse me, a little more traction than some of my other videos. And I was like, oh my gosh, people like this. And so from there, I just sort of started brainstorming some other ones because I enjoyed making it so much. And next thing I knew, I just kept making more and more until it kind of just like took over and became my main thing.
Yes, and that's how it usually happens. And like, how does it make you feel to be able to just create, these fun things out of food? Like, is food like your go-to? Like, what?
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's such a fun way to like combine things. I don't know. And I do love food, so I think that helps, and it's really cool. I think I feel like I sometimes would get overwhelmed thinking about like oh my gosh, there's endless possibilities of things to make. And so I feel like this is by focusing on like food animals, it's a fun way to get really creative, but also sort of giving myself a little bit of direction so I'm not like completely at a loss of what to make.
Yes.
So I feel like it kind of helps in that way.
Yes, I definitely agree with that, right? Like just focusing on one thing, but being very creative with it all in general, right? Because food is endless, right?
Yeah.
Your community, Naomi, is thriving. I see like today you are like near reaching the 200K mark. And I would like to know, how do you foster such a supportive and interactive environment among your followers?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the crochet community is, I think, one of the most special things about crochet for me. I love it so much. And so I think just naturally that became a huge part of how I sort of interacted and formed my social media. I think it's just the crochet community in general is such a like loving and supportive community. So I think that also makes it a lot easier because you already have a group of so many amazing people. And so I think a lot of me for like quite a long time since like decently early when I was still kind of figuring stuff out for myself, I've always sort of been interested in wanting to like foster a supportive community. So I'd always be doing small creator shout outs or even just, asking my followers their opinions on things and trying to start conversations. And I think that's sort of the best way that I found to really connect with the community and foster that, not feeling like, oh, I'm just the like, person and everyone's just watching me. It's like, well, no, let's make this a conversation. Let's, sort of do a give and take. So it's not all just me feeling like I'm, in some different level from everyone else or whatever, right? It's like, it's really about just, I'm part of the community and I'm hoping I can help other people in the community connect with each other.
Yes, absolutely. I get that, right? Like just creating that opportunity where it's like, yeah, you all are following me, but here it is that this is what I have to offer to you. this is how I can support what you're creating.
Mm-hmm.
We can all make this like a family environment. I definitely agree with that because I'm like on that same, level as well. Because once upon a time, we were looking for people to look at us, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I definitely get that. And I love, love, love that about you know, your account and, you just even creating a video that you're directly speaking to people, you're engaging them, asking them to participate in whatever it is. You're providing them not only with information, but inspiration at the same time. And so that's what gives people a sense of belonging. And that's what people are looking for, right? Like most of the time when we get on social media, yeah, we're scrolling, we're looking, but we're trying to find that one thing that can be relatable to who we
Exactly.
are. Right.
Yeah.
So that is definitely something I see that you create. And I just love that about, your account and even, in regards to who you are in general. So
Yeah,
thank you
thank
for
you so
really
much.
creating that. Yeah.
I love what you said about we all started our account at one point and we're looking for people to sort of like get inspiration from and look up to. And I think that's like a really great way to put it because I think a lot of people when they start crocheting, it can seem intimidating. You hear a lot about the crochet community, but you're like, how do I become a part of that? It seems like some like big thing you don't even know really how to get involved with it. And so I think that definitely is a part of why I sort of structure my account and the way I try to interact with people and stuff does come a little bit from that too, because I was once upon a time like, the crochet community sounds so awesome, but I don't know if I belong there or if I'm a part of it. So trying to make sure there's a space for everyone to feel welcome in it, I think is so important.
Yes, absolutely what you said, right? Like, do I really belong here? And if
Mm-hmm.
so, like, how can I get a part of that? And what does that look like, right? So, yes, I definitely agree. And like I said, now you have many, you have so many opportunities and options, right? In regards to, okay, well, how can I get myself out there? But once again, like you said, like the community is so embracing that, you don't get that sense of feeling like you're left out. And, even with me, when I first started, I'm just like, well, let me just go and share what people need to know, right? Everybody's always
Yeah.
looking for something. So, and
No, it's so true. Yeah.
you never know where it can go, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I definitely agree with that. And so, my Naomi, like many crochet artists right now are really struggling with, and we just talked about this with visibility and their growth. So, what strategy has worked for you in building your impressive social media following?
Thank you. I think one thing for me is that I really have fun with social media. And when I say that to people, a lot of people are like, well, I would never. Like, that's just not me. I just feel like I have to do it. And for me, like, I didn't start off being like, oh, I'm going to love the social media aspect. I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And I didn't know if I would like it. And I felt awkward at first. I didn't know if I should be on camera. And if I was, it took me like 50 takes to do anything. So I was like, oh my gosh, what is my hand doing? I look so awkward, all of that stuff. And so for me, it just took time. But then once I sort of loosened up a bit and started experimenting is when it really kind of became a lot more fun to me and rewarding. And I think that's sort of a great starting place is just experimenting because you never know what's going to work for you. And what works for one person might not work for another. Everyone has their own style and way they like to do things and what works for their account. So for me, the biggest thing is experimenting. I still do a lot of experimenting. I'll try different video formats. Sometimes I'm talking for a long time. Sometimes they're really short videos, playing around with things like that just to really see what number one do people seem to be engaged with and what do I like creating. And I think that's a great way to keep things fresh and interesting. I think another thing, strategy that I use a lot is being sort of a bit like putting myself in the shoes of someone who would watch the video because you can have a video that say just shows off a stuffed animal, but depending on how you like package that, like what text you use on screen, all those things can have like a huge difference on if someone's gonna scroll away or keep watching. And so for me, it's a lot of thinking like, okay, what would make me stop scrolling on my feed and be like, oh wow, I want to see what this is, or I want to interact with this. And so yeah, I think that's another big thing is just thinking, am I packaging this in a way that other people will be interested in? Because unfortunately, it is hard. There's so many accounts and like, even just, you scroll through your feed, there's an endless amount of different things you can see. And so a lot of times you are going to swipe. So just trying to experiment and see what gets people to stop scrolling, I think is a great first step with that.
Yeah, and what I heard you say is, well, you didn't directly say it, but what you said from what I heard is not only being interested in, just social media in general, but just being interested in the content you are creating and what people are actually interested in. Continue to do that, right? Like you said, like you try different things, but then you're like, okay, well, let me just revisit what I've already created so that I can get an opportunity to see like, well, would I even enjoy this myself, right? So I think that's definitely important, right? Like, yeah, about a lot of people like, oh, you got to learn about analytics and you got to learn about this and you got to learn about that. But I think that for the person that is just starting out, I mean, not so much so needing to know those things in detail, but just being able to realize like, like that warm market, right? Like how am I relating to the people that are, going to see this? Like, and like you said, whether they're going to scroll past or just say, oh wait, let me look at this. And it can even be something as simple as like you said, what you create. It could be the words on the screen. It could be just that one word that you use that's like, oh wait, what is she talking about?
Yeah.
Part of that, right? And so I think that that's very important, even in regards to a lot of people when they say, well, I don't get people that are interested in the things that I have to offer. And it's like, well, no, that's not accurate. It's just that you didn't try different ways to really get that person engaged to say, well, this is why you should connect with me, right? So
Yeah, no, I love that. That's so true.
yeah, it's true, right? And like even, like for instance, people know when they go on your social media account, they're gonna find these cute stuffed animals that are food related, and then they're also gonna get some tips on how they can grow their own social media account, right? And so people are gonna say, oh, well, let me continue to connect with her because somewhere in her video, yes, she may be talking about this, but she's also gonna tell me how I can get in front of more people, right?
Yeah.
So that's definitely important. And I'm happy that you really created that because there's so many people that start out and it's like, oh, wait, which direction do I go when the information is there, right? And then you're not having them search for the information because you're just giving it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love that. Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely think that's important.
I think another thing with that too is sort of what you kind of touched on a little bit there is one thing that I thought was a huge learning experience for me was kind of realizing the difference between wanting to attract people to buy my stuffed animals and wanting to attract other crocheters to be interested in my other content and my patterns and things like that. Because that is a lot of people I think, especially when they're starting out, don't realize those are two often very different groups. And it's hard to figure out like, oh my gosh, which one do I want to appeal to? For me, it kind of happened that I was focusing more on kind of trying to appeal to anyone. But then with my hand paint, I'm like, well, I can't really accept many orders now. And I asked on my stories, I'm like, how many of you guys crochet? And it was like, 80-90% were saying they do crochet. So I'm like, okay, this makes me feel a bit better. I can, focus a bit more on patterns and things like that and not feel as stressed about the fact that I can't necessarily crochet as much for orders. So what does that mean? So I think kind of figuring out those things can be really helpful too. Like, what does your current audience want? And does that align with what you actually want to offer? And if not, you got to, figure out things there. But I think that's definitely a big learning experience I had. And you can definitely go for both, but it is mindful. Like I always try to tell people, like when you're making content, think who it's for. If you're trying to sell a finished item, you don't want to just be only attracting other crocheters necessarily, because a lot of people who might buy it probably don't crochet themselves, right? So it's about sort of thinking about those things. And I do think also what you said about like, you don't have to worry about analytics and things like that. Like it can be I think it can be way too overwhelming for people when they hear all of this at once. I know I was like, oh my gosh, when I first started learning all this, and that was kind of when I was more on TikTok, and I would see videos of people being like, if you want to grow your TikTok account, you need to post 3 to 5 times a day. And I'm like, oh my God, it's just overwhelming with all this stuff. So I do think, I love that you said, just starting sort of simple with some of the basics. Like you can just tune out all of that other stuff when you're starting out because it's just going to be too much to learn all at once. I think just focusing on those little things like, okay, what do I think would get someone to stop scrolling? Something I suggested when I would do my audits is like, just spend like 5 to 10 minutes scrolling on your feed just naturally and try to keep an eye out when you stop and watch a video, what made you not scroll away or what made you decide to scroll away on that video, and those sorts of things can be helpful in sort of figuring those like basics out without having to go into all the nitty gritty details of like analytics and all those things.
Yes, that's definitely some great information right there, right? Because like even what you just said, even in regards to, okay, wait, I can't crochet no more because I have, this injury with my hands. but that's not going to take away from the fact that this is something that I still love. So what can I do now to create something new and still be able to just continue on doing what I do, right? And so I think that that's important because a lot of people, they do get discouraged. I tell people all the time, like, I don't really sell my crochet items. Now, you'll see me always crocheting. You'll see me always, but I feel like you said, right? Like after a while, your hands start getting hurt, you're hurting, all kinds of crazy things start happening. And then now what happens with your brand? What does that look like for you?
Yeah.
Right? So being able to just sometimes even balancing the two, right? Like
Definitely.
I want to, fulfill on this and I can fulfill on this, or let me just focus on this area. So I think that definitely is helpful. And thank you for sharing that, right? So, so crochet is not only creative, but it also is deeply personal. So can you share a project that has special meaning to you and why it stands out?
Yeah, I think that's such a fun question. I feel like I have a couple options that I could go for. I think one that I think is really special to me is a couple years ago, me and quite a few other crochet friends, we all decided to make a granny square blanket for our friend Charlize from Charlize's Crochet Closet, because she struggles with a lot of chronic illnesses and she's been in and out of the hospital a lot. And a pattern test that she did is how I met like a lot of my really great crochet friends now. So we all made a few granny squares. I had like only made like 1 or 2 granny squares before my life and like never did anything with them. So it was also me trying something new, but it was really great seeing it all together. I mean, I can send you a photo if you want, but obviously I don't have it here.
Absolutely.
But I think that was a really special project. And then I feel like other than that, I always loved custom orders. They would give me so much anxiety when I would be doing them because I was like, oh my gosh, they need to be perfect. But I think once they were done and I could see the person was happy with them, some of those were, I think, really special to me. There was a couple times where I'd make one for someone whose like dog passed away. And so I was making their dog. And I think those ones were always really special.
Oh, that is so sweet. I didn't even think of that, right? Like my dog passed away too. And
oh,
that
I'm
is
sorry.
so sweet. So like how would you personalize that in regards to just that particular person? Like, are you just creating the dog in the image of what the dog used to look like, or what are you doing with that?
Yeah, so most of the time it would be basically just trying to make it like look as much close to the dog as possible. So usually I wouldn't follow a pattern, or if I did, I'd usually modify it however I needed to. And then I always try to make it as, personable as possible, or sorry, personalized as possible. So I know one of them, their dog, its favorite toy was like a little carrot. So I made like a little carrot with a magnet so it could like, look like he was like having it in his mouth and stuff. So yeah, it was fun. They're definitely hard to do, but it is definitely really rewarding. But yeah, definitely don't do those things now only just because of my hands and things. But I think those were some of my favorite orders that I've done.
Yes. Oh, I'm excited just even hearing about it. So, Naomi, what advice would you give to an inspiring crochet artist who dream of just turning their passion into a successful business?
I would say, definitely don't get discouraged. It doesn't happen. I think sometimes occasionally there'll be like a person that, all of a sudden they blow up and everyone assumes sort of that's how things always happen. And I think there's also an assumption that like it always happens really quickly when that's not the case at all. Like it takes time for people. My Instagram account was, very not active and not having many people follow me for quite a while. Like it took me months, I think, to get my first like 100 followers even. And so like, it definitely happens at different paces for different people, so don't give up. With that especially, I've been doing my small creator shoutouts for quite a while now. And actually at one point, after I took a break from them, I had to make a new forum because I'd go back to the old ones. And there were so many people whose accounts, like they stopped posting and they'd only ever posted like 3 things. And I was like, wow, they were really talented. That's such a shame they haven't posted in like a year or whatever now. So I think a lot of people can get discouraged quickly, which is understandable, but it really can take a lot of time. So just because your first few posts don't do well doesn't mean you should give up. And I would say another thing, if in terms of just like building a business in general, is remember, like kind of like we were talking about before, that there's a lot of different avenues. Like, maybe if social media you just really hate it, then look into doing more markets and things like that and selling in person. Or if you love more just like talking and chatting, maybe trying to look into doing some more stuff on YouTube. Like there's a lot of different routes, or even just selling plushes online or, wearables online versus selling patterns. Like there's a lot of different revenues or avenues that you can, make revenue. So I think the best thing to do is just like experiment and see what you love and what is the best fit for you, because different things work for different people.
I definitely like that. I agree with that in the sense of, like you said, like, I mean, things happen for people differently. Like I know, like when I first started out in January of 2024, I had 73 followers. And then yesterday I hit like 44K, right?
That's amazing. Yeah, congratulations.
It didn't take, thank you. It didn't really take that long. But then at the same time, there was times that I'm like, oh my goodness, do I really still have to do this posting all the time? And
Yeah.
so like you said, finding that love for it, because when you don't love it and it's something that you have to do, then that's when it turns into this like this bother of you like, all right, well, I really don't want to do this anymore, right? So I definitely agree with you in that sense. And so like, for someone who is listening, Naomi, like, one, how long did it take you to get where you are today? And what is that one thing that you would just say to them in regards to just starting out? Like you said, even if you get that post at one time and they don't really get that many views, that's okay. Keep on going. So what is what advice would you give them in regards to that?
Yeah, so I think I'm trying to like I'm not sure of my timeline exactly. I know I started my account in maybe October of 2021, and I think it was slow for quite a while. Gosh, I'm so bad at remembering dates. So I'm not quite sure when I started like really taking off, but I think it definitely was a while. I could probably look it up after, but I don't want to spend so long scrolling on my phone. But it definitely took a while for me. I started doing a bit better on TikTok, and then at some point, like it sort of switched, and then I was doing better on Instagram and not on TikTok. And now I don't post on TikTok as much. But it like
Really?
for me, it definitely was slow. Like on Instagram especially, like it did not just happen quickly. I think it was the growth kind of slowly built up to it. Wasn't like, oh my gosh, I had a viral video and now, But I think for me, it sort of once what really clicked, I think, was like in January. I think it was January 2023 was when I got my first video. I think that hit like over 1 million views. And at that point, I think everything just started to make sense to me about a lot more about social media, because since then, like I've had at least like one video get 1 million views every month, like for the last like 2 years now. So I think, thank you. Or I guess, wait, no, I guess like the last year. No, yeah, I guess it's December, like 2 years now. And I think a lot of people think it's like, well, because you're a big account now, which does definitely have a big part in it. But even then, when I got that first one with 1 million views, I was not, a big account. And I think the biggest thing that came down to was understanding hooks. And like that for me, I think would be the biggest thing is just you have to hook people in with in the first couple seconds of your video. And once you sort of figure that out and understand how to do that like successfully, I think it makes everything a lot easier. So that's definitely, I'd say, my biggest takeaway and how I sort of get to consistently make videos that do well. And my biggest piece of advice, like, definitely not giving up, and also just knowing that, don't compare yourself to other people too much. Even today, like, I struggle with this a little bit. I will be so happy for my friends when they do well, but then there's also that little part of my brain like, oh, but why aren't you doing that thing? Why, you know what I mean? Like, it can be really hard.
Oh, that's so good, Naomi.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It can be really hard, right?
I can relate to that, right? And it's we're human. It's a natural thing that happens, right? Where you're like, okay, I'm happy for them, but wait, why haven't I tried that?
Yeah. Exactly. And I'm really trying to work on that, because it definitely, like you said, it is human, but it definitely can, if you let yourself focus on that too much, it can get really heavy on you and just make you feel like you're not good enough. And I think a lot of times it's easy to remember, like, even if, let's say, your first few posts didn't do great, there could be someone else out there that would look at you and be like, I wish I had the courage to make my first post. I'm still too nervous to. So even just making that first post, someone else could be comparing themselves to you, being like, wow, how come I haven't done that yet? So no matter where you are there in your journey, there are probably people that would look up to you and people that wish that they were where you are at, even if you feel like you're not at the highest place. So I think, remembering that we're all unique in our own ways. And just because one person has made this success or, grew in this amount of time doesn't mean anything about your own success. And I think that's a really hard thing again. Like I'm still trying to work on too, but I think it's one of the most important things.
It is important because, you know, you can also get caught up in that moment of, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, well, how come it's not happening for me? And then that takes you in a whole nother, you know, direction you don't need to be in. Like they always say, like the worst place you could be in is your head, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it's so true. Like I've had times when, my videos were doing really great for like all of like 2023 and then the beginning of 2024, yeah, I kind of had a dip and I was looking at some other accounts that were like really blowing up at the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like am I just done? Like is it just like I'm not important in the like, all these things. And that was just me getting in my own head, it's normal to have times where videos don't do as well and things like that. But if you let yourself get in your own head too much, then I think it was impacting my content because I was more anxious and I was like stressed about stuff. And once I finally was like, Naomi, you just have to let it go. Then like everything started picking back up again because I was being myself and I wasn't all stressed out and anxious about everything. And so definitely you can be your own worst enemy getting in your head too much.
yes, I definitely agree with that. Now, Naomi, when you create food, is it more of focusing on people healthy eating, or is it just food in general? Like what what is the whole, vision in regards to creating crochet food items?
I honestly just kind of do whatever I want to do. I would say most of them are probably more unhealthy foods, just because I don't know, those often are things that are like fun colors or like just cool to make or that I want to see in a plushie. I also I'm definitely someone who loves junk food, so like I do feel like I take some inspiration, like my taco dinosaurs and stuff. I love tacos,
Yeah.
things like
Oh,
that.
me
So
too. I tell people all the time, like, if you want to love me, just buy me a taco.
yeah, no, tacos are my absolute favorite, which is probably why I've made like two now. And it's so funny actually though, because also then sometimes when I'll be making them, then I keep craving that food. So like when I was working on the taco Rex, I'm like, I've been having like tacos like 3 times this week because I just keep craving them when I'm working on those projects. But yeah, I actually like I've been wanting to I feel like I've sort of had like an okay mix, but honestly not a great mix of doing a bunch of different sorts of foods. Like I do want to expand into doing more things like, fruit and veggies or other things which I haven't done a lot of yet. So I definitely am hoping to expand in some of those other ways because now that you mention it, yeah, like I do make a lot of more junk
Right.
food.
And as we were talking, I was like, let me just ask, right? Like you never
Yeah,
know.
no, that's a good question actually.
Because because you do have people that are like these big health nuts,
Yeah.
as far as just being vegan and there's so many
Yeah.
different things. So
Well,
that's
it's funny. Yeah, I'm vegan, but I just, yeah, which everyone's always surprised at because of everything I make. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm like a junk food vegan, so, you know, it's funny that, yeah, I think a lot of people are surprised by it. I've even had people like being like, oh my gosh, imagine if I showed these to a vegan, they'd be so upset. I'm like, well, I don't think so. I'm vegan.
right, right.
It's so
And that's
funny,
the
but
funny part about it, right?
yeah.
Oh my goodness, I so love that. Oh my goodness, thank you for sharing that. So, as we wrap up, Naomi, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to have this conversation, could you leave our listeners with one piece of wisdom or encouragement to take them on their crochet journeys?
Yeah, it's been so fun talking. And I love this question ending with it. I feel like there's so many that I'd love to give. I think thinking about, comparing yourself to others and all those things and everyone, growing at their own pace. I think something that I'm still working on myself that I think is also one of the biggest things to remember is that at the end of the day, crochet is handmade and it doesn't, not everything's going to be absolutely perfect. I think, sometimes I'll have a stitch. I'm like, wow, that stitch was like really loose compared to the rest of the tension or whatever, still to this day. It's okay that everything isn't perfect. And sometimes I think that gives things more personality. I think the best thing is just to be easy on yourself. Remember that no matter where you are in your journey, there's always space to learn and grow. And that doesn't mean that where you are now is bad. It just means, I think we can all improve in our own ways and just be kind to yourself.
Yes, I definitely agree with that, right? Because sometimes, trying to be perfect, you can get discouraged and you're like, you know what, never mind, it's not for me. And I still struggle with that as well. So I thank you for that piece of knowledge because even recently creating something for someone, and I noticed like at row 4, I made the wrong stitch, but I was already at row 15, and here I am,
Oh no, yeah.
second guessing myself, like, well, should you take it out? Should you leave it? Should you take
Mhm.
it out? Well, what if the person sees it? And guess what? I ended up taking it out, right? So I too needed to hear that because, sometimes we are hard on ourselves in regards to what it is that we're creating, and we think that everything needs to be perfect. And then we find ourselves a little frustrated, upset. It can also lead to us being discouraged and saying, you know what, let me just put this to the side, and putting it to the side maybe 3 years later. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you have some projects that's
Oh
like,
yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
yeah, so I really, really, really appreciate those words of advice because it definitely is helpful. And look, Naomi, I'm so grateful that you are just blessing us with the opportunity to, get to learn how to grow ourselves and get in front of more people, and also making it fun. I think that that's the thing that connected me with you is just like when I watch you, I'm like, look at her just excited and having fun. And one of the things I can say for me is when I saw you talking on your videos, I was like, never me. Like, I am not talking, but that's my own personal issue that I have with myself in regards to being comfortable. So, like you said, what works for one doesn't work for all, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. And you just got to find that medium and what works for you. So,
Yeah. And
thank
it's so
you.
funny. Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I actually kind of like at first I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to show myself on camera. And then, now I always am basically on camera. But I still, up until like I would say like this year, I barely talked on camera. I was like, I don't like to talk on camera. I don't like, I hated it. And I did hate it at first still. And I still, it's not my favorite because I feel like I'm always stumbling on my words and having to be like, oh no, I have to say it again because I mixed stuff up. But it definitely is just one of those things that just practice. I just had to, do it a lot and force myself to do it. And eventually I got more comfortable with it. But yeah, like that, I absolutely hated it at first too. So definitely can relate.
Well, thank you so much, Naomi. And please let us all know, like, if you have anything coming up that you want us to know about, how can we find you? How else can we connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm on YouTube. I don't post much, but I'm gonna be trying in the new year too. So you can follow me over there. That'd be amazing. Yeah, I don't post much on TikTok. So I'd say Instagram's the best place to find me. You can find my patterns at croutonscrochet.com.
Thank you for being here and having this conversation with us. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was so great talking.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Yarn That Bonds Us. I hope today's conversations left you inspired, encouraged, and reminded that crochet is so much more than a craft. It's a thread that connects our stories, our healing, and our dreams. If you love what you heard, don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss a stitch of inspiration. Share this episode with a fellow maker who could use a little spark today, and join our community online to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep creating, keep connecting, and remember, the yarn that bonds us is stronger than the struggles that try to unravel us. Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Yarn That Bonds Us. I hope today's conversations left you inspired, encouraged, and reminded that crochet is so much more than a craft. It's a thread that connects our stories, our healing, and our dreams. If you love what you heard, don't forget to follow the podcast so you never miss a stitch of inspiration. Share this episode with a fellow maker who could use a little spark today, and join our community online to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep creating, keep connecting, and remember, the yarn that bonds us is stronger than the struggles that try to unravel us.